Dear Earthmates, we are visiting Patrick Chun. Is this the correct pronunciation of your name?
Absolutely correct. Yes.
Wonderful. And this is our first meeting, almost, nearly. Uh, and you live in Vancouver, Canada, right?
Vancouver, Canada. That's right. Yes.
Beautiful city. I've been there. And you were just saying something about World War II. Yes, please.
There was this little known battle in the 1940s when the Nazi invaded France. They tried to go through Belgium, and then they also went through the Ardennes forest as something that was unexpected and so on. And they basically got the British expedition and the French army on the run. And so they were going up to Dunkirk. And so you're talking about 200, 300,000 soldiers being trapped over there. And the Nazis, Panzer, the tanks, were on the heels. One small group of soldiers from the Allied army resisted in one of the towns. And they only have about 80 tanks versus something like a few hundreds, the Nazis. So it's a no hope situation. But what happened was because of these 80 tanks, these 80 brave tankmen, the Nazis' high command in Belgium, in Berlin, had second thoughts about uh, progressing too fast. So they actually gave time for the 200 or so soldiers to escape back to England to fight another day. So that little battle, you can say, changed the course of history. If the Nazi captured the 200, 300,000 war-hardened, experienced soldiers, the Ally, it would be very much harder to build up again in England over the years. So it's all about timing. So this little army did a lot of changes to world history. And you may say, well, the British government, Winston Churchill, Prime Minister of England at that point, if they lost this 200, 300,000 soldiers, they may be forced to have some kind of a peace treaty with Hitler, Nazi Germany. And so that would change the course of history. Without England, Hitler would only have one front fighting the Soviet Union on the eastern side. They would never have Normandy in 1944, D-Day landing on Normandy with the movie Saving Private Ryan, for example. That would never have happened. North Africa would have been lost in all that sense. So just a little battle could change something. So you were talking about, well, we are all individuals and we are weak compared to the evil of ammunition factories and so on. Yeah, but we just don't know what little part of what we're doing is going to change history because of our effort in that regard. So I always teach my young daughters. I said, don't look at little things that you think are insignificant. It's the butterfly effect. So we just don't
Yes.
know which butterfly is going to make the difference. So
True, true, Patrick, true. And as Earthmates, as a Earth Civilization Network, we're a small group in number. Uh, we have a good synergy, and we want to be able to produce an example that can be learned from, so that certain ideas can travel. Uh, Not only COVID-19 can travel fast, but good ideas can also travel fast today. So that's the thing. And meeting you is wonderful. You have wonderful energy and very fruitful. Will you please mention a few things about your life? First of all, okay, you are an engineer and an entrepreneur. Uh, okay, shall we start with that? I mean,
many years ago, I'll tell you another personal story.
Mm.
I live intentionally moved to China for 4 years just to learn the language and the culture.
Mm.
Even though I may look the part, I'm the furthest thing. I'm, a product of the Western world, educated in the West, and went to university here in North America and so on. So I went there and learned about things. Um, and as an engineer, I look at the world, with numbers and thermodynamics and calculus and so on. But since we sold the company a number of years ago, uh, there are people who want us to provide them with soft skill trainings,
What was the
learning
company
about the.
sorry, the
I'm sorry.
company, what was the company that you sold?
That was a company that built educational software. It's called Greenwood Canada, and we sold part of that, and that
Very
was more than a decade ago. And then the same customers, basically, they said, well, Patrick, why don't you provide us with why the world loves the Western entrepreneurial spirit? What is it? Since you're from the West, and I work in California for many years, so I know the culture a little bit, and so that promised to build a nonprofit into creating something called the World Civility Index. So this index is somewhat similar to a person's personal credit rating, but instead of measuring how well you can pay your bills, for example, it measures how much manners you have, how much empathy you have, your past exposure to something like this. So this World Civility Index is this kind of measurement, so that, for example, in the commercial world, companies can use that as a hiring criteria. So for the job seekers coming in, if they can show, one person have 300 points, let's say, and the other person don't even know about the World Civility Index, well, we recommend that the company to give the interview to the person with the 300 points, because that person already has gone through a lot of the education in empathy, in etiquette, and so on. So that is the kind of motivation that we had about 12 years ago. That's when we started the World Civility Index. It's a grassroots movement, so it's created by a bunch of very experienced soft skill trainers and a group of engineers like myself. So I was coordinating that, creating that group, and now we're in 19 countries. So
right.
that is what we have been doing.
Congratulations and thank you. The notion of civility, will you please explain it a little bit? Civility.
Yeah, it's much more than social etiquette or dining etiquette, like which fork to use at the dining table.
Mm.
A lot of the trainers do that, but the spirit is really about cultivating young people, for example, in learning about respect. A lot of young people, especially if I go to university and so on and talk about civility and so on to engineering students, I almost always got laughed out of the room. And I can see myself being that young person or young group myself 30 years ago, because I didn't know any better. I always thought that, a good product will sell itself. Yes and no. Most of the time, you don't sell the product unless there's good communication and respect for the audience and respect for the social expectations and so on. So those are the kind of things that I've changed over the last 30 years since I graduated. And the personal story comes like this. I was at a train station in China, and we were doing some marketing and so on. And my CFO, my chief financial officer, was with me and so on. And he is from that area. And so he said, "Oh, sorry, I didn't realize today, we had meetings, but this is actually the Chinese New Year's Eve, and there at the Shenzhen train station, there were something like 20,000 people there. A station that was designed maybe for 5,000, but they got 20,000. So it was just jam packed. Everybody was just walking like this, like penguins. And he said, "Oh, Patrick, I'm sorry. You know, I know you're from the West, and you're not used to being crowded like this." And I said something that surprised me. I said, "Wow, these are all the people going back home to visit their families, right? That's the Chinese tradition for them to go back to wherever village they come from. They were working in Shenzhen, you know, working in Foxconn, building iPhones and so on." And I said, "Wow, 20,000 love stories." And thinking back, I said, if it was a Patrick Chun 30 years ago, I would never have said that. I would have said, "Oh my God, this is such horrible situation. We can't get anything done. It's, you know, the train is jam-packed, and we probably won't be able to get a seat on there and so on." But I think I've changed since we built this nonprofit called the World Civility Index, in that I myself is also learning as to what is empathy, is to be able to see from their side. I mean, you see Chinese, you know, some of the laborers and so on, they take the train, same train station, you know, they're carrying a lot of stuff, you know, in their bags and backpacks and so on, food and whatever, carrying back to the village. So you see that they are bringing something back to their hometown, small, impoverished, most likely. So, you know, those are kind of things that I was very happy. So I always write my journal and tell my daughters about, you know, my experience and so on. So I think those are the kind of things that when we do something like that, we also grow in the sense that I saw things that I didn't see 30 years ago until I was at that train station. So I think that was something that I gained.
But my wife Füsun and I, we visited China about 9 years ago. We went to Beijing, Shanghai, and a few other places. And we were impressed, of course, very much. And I would love to spend some time in China, maybe at a university, especially where they teach Turkology, or Turkish language and literature. And I would like to learn a lot, actually. Maybe it will be possible someday. Um, and I owe a lot to Lao Tse, Confucius. Of course, they are among my masters in human history. Um, Civility is actually maybe a good word for living virtuously, in a way. And yes, it needs constant awareness, actually, because I guess in all of us, there is a good tendency and a destructive tendency, and nobody can be sure if, we should always be well disciplined from inside, with a good intention, not oppressive, but and thanks to nature, thank nature, we have the potential, we have the capacity, actually. Your childhood, what do you think about your childhood when you look back?
Well, my parents escaped communist China when I was 3 years old. And I was born in Shanghai, China. And even to this day, I have been labeled as a communist. And but the kind of things is, I don't blame people saying something like this in the press. In fact, just today, I received something like this, and people ask me if I'm upset. I have passed that stage. I'm quite thick-skinned now, because people just don't know, right? People who discriminate are people usually who don't know. Are they really bad people? I may have to confess, like my wife was saying, you are discriminating too, Patrick, in a bad way. And I have to do self-reflection. And I said, yeah, sometimes I discriminate without even thinking about it, right? So that's part of the game. And I have a lot of um, friends here in Canada who are not ethnic Chinese or anything like that, and they have different perspective that I learn from. So I think the good thing about growing up in a place like Canada, where there are different multi-ethnic groups, not just Caucasian, the British or the French and so on, but they're also from the Middle East, in Turkey, from different places. It's a very rich environment where we become a little bit more empathetic because we have personal experience. Having friends who are, oh yeah, I got a friend from Turkey, I got another friend from Iran, and people from Nigeria. They are not Middle Easterners, they are not Central Asians, they are not blacks, they're just John,
Mm,
Eric, and Kevin. you know they are friends. It's only, oh yeah, you are black, you are Middle Easterner, and so on. It's only it becomes a totally reverse kind of view of looking at the world. And I think when we are able to do something like that, we gain a lot. We become hopefully a little bit more neutral, in that we're not as skewed in our view. And oh yeah, somebody from China must be communist. Well, some people actually want to escape the country, and the sad thing is you are labeling them for exactly the thing that they want to escape. So those are kind of things that are unfair. And I think if you talk about equality or equity, that is the thing that we got to be aware that not all Russians want to go into war, I'm sure. And so by labeling all Russians are aggressors, we are doing more disservice to the world than trying to wipe out this kind of wipe out the war. For whoever is right or wrong,
true,
it's immaterial.
true. And also words, adjectives, categories have different meanings for different people. For example, if you consider that the word communist is related to the word commune, then Jesus Christ was a pro-commune person. He was a communist in that
He
sense.
was a communist.
Uh, so, uh, but unfortunately, um, it's sad that certain words have lost credibility for the most part. Well, that's another issue. Yes. Um, so you mentioned your daughters. I have one daughter and two grandchildren, and you have two daughters, three. You
I have two. One is 22 and the other one is 18. The oldest one is just finishing her kinesiology at UBC, University of British Columbia, here in
oh,
Vancouver.
interesting.
And the other one is in computer science, also at UBC.
Wonderful.
So,
Let me ask you this. Um, a father with a daughter, one or two, um, when your first daughter reached the age of 18, did you have a crisis? I did. I mean, she's a panic. She's becoming a woman, and I'm losing her, or although, some, what should my new limitations be? As what are my duties and rights as a father, etc. Did you
mhm.
have a few problems with that?
Yeah, oh yeah, I can empathize with what you're doing. It's like when they were younger, especially my older one, she was very curious. She would, go to the computer and say, "Hey, daddy, what are you writing in your journal today?" She would want to check out my journal and so on. That was when she was, much younger. And then came, yeah, 18 or so. she changed into a different person to me anyway. She was much cooler. She was much jaded. You know, anything in the world is almost like she has seen it and done it all. And she has her own mind, and I seem to not be able to tap into that. But friends have been telling me, you know, that is something that is normal, and they will come back after about 25 or so. They were going to come back and say, "Oh, Daddy is my good old dad," and so on. So
Yeah.
so I'm counting my years, my days that they would go to when they hit 25 or something like that, and that they will come back and
Because
give me a hug.
yes, I think a father may be the only man in a girl's life that she can be sure, usually, that never upset her. That will never upset her. This is important. We need some uh, strongholds in life, psychologically. That may be one person, two people, three people. Um, uh, so, uh, and how did you change when you became a father?
It changed me totally. I think the you know, the train station incident that I talked about earlier was in fact a product of having my daughters. You know, I watched them in the delivery room coming out into this world. Uh, it changed me completely as a person. You know, I wasn't thinking like that. I was thinking about myself and all that, career, business, all that. But after that, it's not the focus on me. You know, my wife and I, you know, it for her obviously, but for me, the focus was on them. What can I do so that they can live in a world that would be a little more comfortable compared to now? So whatever I can do is no longer about me, business, and so on, or my survival. I always keep on telling them we're going to be gone, and they need to take care of each other. And we always tell the oldest girl that the younger one is a gift for her. I wanted just one kid, but my wife said, you know, Patrick, if we're not going to have a second one, we're going to have big issues. I go, oh, okay. So we have a second one, and I've been so happy that, you know, with her wisdom, having a second one, I just think it was a wonderful thing. Um,
In,
in fact, I joke about, oh, hey, why don't we have a third one? I love the two girls. Why don't we have a third one? And she said, I am done. If you want a third one, you have to find another woman to have a third one. So
yeah, that would mean extra business. Uh, uh, in my case, I said one child, please, and one, yes, but anyway, in China, by the way, one child policy changed recently,
yeah.
and by the way, are there intercultural programs between China and other countries? I don't know. I think all countries should develop exchanges, visiting there. The more we know people, the more peaceful this place can be. Um,
We are developing something along the line of intercultural awareness.
hmm,
And again, as an entrepreneur running a nonprofit, I always think of how can we provide products and services that people can buy, that we can sell as a nonprofit. So we're becoming a social enterprise. So we don't depend on donations and charities and so on. We never taken any money from that. Uh, so now we're talking about setting up some kind of upper level management CEO club, if you may, between Malaysia, Thailand, and the Philippines. and also in South America too, like Ecuador and other locations, where we can have these groups of people learning from each other as to what they see as important. Now there are already these groups, so I don't have to start reinventing the wheel. What we're saying is we can put the World Civility Index into these activities that are already happening with companies setting these up and so on. And all the CEOs and so on can also earn World Civility Index. And by that, they can tap into the program where there are readings and occasional webinars and so on. All that program that are not created by me, but there are writers, there are reporters from Harvard Business Reviews, professors, and so on. They would do all that work, and we can put that into this container called the World Civility Index reading program. And so all of the people, so when the CEOs learn about something like that, they can introduce it to their employees, and the employees can also earn World Civility Index, and the companies can have an average score. So what happens is somebody told me, some CEO told me, you know what, Patrick, this is a really good thing, because now there's a measurement, there's management. I can actually see, yes, our people are doing so much this year, and next year we are doing more or whatever. So we can show them what the effort of the employees are. Now, so how does that change the world? When companies want certain things, the workforce usually would comply. If they want people who know computer programming, well, there are a lot of people going to run around and learn computer programming. And when the employees, when the workforce comply, by extension, the general population will also comply. They will also realize, hey, this is something that is important. And so let's learn something like this. That's how email got so popular. In the old days, when I was a youngster, email was the realm of computer scientists and engineers communicating with one another and so on. That was back in the late 1980s. So how did that go about? Now, they introduced email to companies in the United States. And so when the companies do something like this, then the employees start saying, hey, let's use emails. People resisted. People thought, I can just write my email. I can just write my normal mail. I don't need emails and so on. But after they've used it, they realize, hey, this is something really good. So companies, employees start using emails, and by extension, general population learn about emails. So that's how things get spread. How they got spread. And so with the World Civility Index, we are seeing the same thing now being used by CEOs and upper management, and also by employees. And the next frontier is to talk to government, local governments, and so on, and say, why don't you use something like this for your whole citizens? So your whole town can have this World Civility Index measurement. And we can say, because what happens is when company wants to pick location to build their own, to build their next sites, factories, or whatever, site selection criteria could include the World Civility Index as one of them, so that when they build new sites, they know that people in the town are nice, they are empathetic, they are tolerant, and so on. So those are kind of things that we want to move the world to. There's some kind of measurement. It's not a lack of training and so on. There's really good trainer out there, training companies and so on, university, academia. But the thing is, it was a lacking of a standard measurement that caused a lot of fragmentation. You know, like we said at the very beginning, we are all fragmented in our own little world. But now with the universal common measurement platform, and there's measurement, cities and towns and countries can do that kind of measurement and spur these kind of culture, if you may.
Yes. And by the way, we can now stop before we start another paragraph and go use the same link and have more time. I recently learned to combine two parts of a video. So can go on.
Okay, sure.
Okay, let's stop here. And then the same link, please. Okay?
Okay, sure.
In a minute. Thank you. Great. And by the way, what is the um, your website? The Patrick Chun dot.
The World Civility Index is being hosted by a nonprofit organization called the IITTI, double I, double T, and an I, .org. And the IITTI stands,
Double TI, right?
yeah, IITTI. It stands for International Soft Skills Standards and Testing.
Great. And how about your personal website?
I don't have a personal website.
Okay.
Everything I do, it's going to be with the IITTI. That's my full-time job, by the way. This is after we sold the company. We made a little bit of money, and I run the IITTI as a full-time, non-salaried position. So I made $0 in the last 12 years.
You are a volunteer. I consider myself an Earth civilization volunteer, for example, and you are also a volunteer.
A volunteer, yes.
Yes. By the way, there is this discussion about AI and the future of humanity, etc. Do you have worries about that?
I don't have worries. I have a lot of we have to about this IITTI NGO, this nonprofit. They actually we actually publish a youth standard about the same time last year in 2022. Yeah, and it's all about the youth. This is all about AI or addressing the effect of AI. And we are seeing that as tremendous opportunity for young people to really, really live life colorfully because of AI. Because of AI, not in spite of AI, but because of AI, they don't have to do a lot of the boring jobs that a lot of young people, even in Canada, so-called, developed country, quote unquote, a lot of young people are not at the full potential. They work at jobs that they hate, that they go, oh, Patrick, if I can, if something, I'll do something. And I go, well, what is it? Why? And then we look at, thousands of these cases, and we realize we extrapolate it back to a point where what is the root cause of these kind of dissatisfaction, boredom, and yes, mental illnesses. Suicide rate is going through the roof. University counselors in University of British Columbia, for example, my alma mater, they were saying that, oh, Patrick, you don't know, we have to double our staff, counselors, university counselors in today's 2022, 2023, compared to 30 years ago when I went to the university. Double the size, because they said there's such an onslaught of freshmen and students coming in that have mental issues. They don't have a lot of life skills that are taken, that you and I may take for granted, because we are still the old school. We grew up before the internet and so on. A lot of young people, they are joined to the hip with their
yes,
with their cell phone. And survey was saying that they much rather have a cell phone than having sex. And so that's a big problem. That's why world population is going down in developing world. Well, not in developing world, but in all the society with cell phones. So those are big. Now, what was this youth standard produced by the World Civility Index? There are three main things. One is we need to help young people cultivate hobbies. Watching TikTok or YouTube videos doesn't count. So cultivating hobbies. Second thing is we need to teach young people how to talk to old people, talk to people like you and I. They don't know how to talk to old people now. Third is young people need to learn how to deal with boredom. Oh. They have no concepts of boredom. Everything they can just get right there and instant gratification. And so we need to send young people the message that if you want to create anything meaningful in life, you have to walk through the desert of boredom before you get to the other side. And then you can realize those kind of feelings. Like as an engineer myself, as an entrepreneur, you work hard 99% of your time as a professional life. It's only that 1% you get the glory of, yes, that machine works, that piece of software works, and that product that you're trying to build for the last 10 years is selling like hotcakes. The glory is money and all that is a secondary, but it's that feeling, that satisfaction, that unless you have gone through that process, you can't experience it. So those are the kind of things that we need to teach young people. Just because you went to a company and you didn't change the world in 3 months, that's not the end. That's only the very tip of the iceberg. You need to spend maybe the next 30 years into building something that is really, really, really useful to you. So, those are kind of things that unless we get that into young people's head, they are going to be doing horribly. They're going to be doing worse compared to today because, like you said, AI with the ChatGPT and whatnot, they are going to take over most of the current traditional jobs as we know them. But if young kids learn about hobbies and so on, they would find things in this world that AI cannot solve because they talk about creativity. And I said, doesn't matter how smart, even if AI is going to be 1,000 times smarter, 1,000,000 times smarter than human being, one thing we are still better than them, and that is we are human. We feel pain. Computers don't feel pain. They don't have that.
We make mistakes.
We make mistakes. We feel pain. And we know what it feels like when your wife gives birth to a baby coming out full of blood and yuck and all that stuff, all the messy stuff. They don't understand, right? So unless it is something from my heart, talking to another person with a heart, a beating heart, that is, all bets are off. I don't care how good the software is. I much rather go to a restaurant where I'm being served and I can interact with other people. If it is a restaurant with just me and everything else is just machine, my God, that is the lowest form of hell, as Dante put it. Dante was saying that the lowest level of hell, well, it's not level, it's actually the core, different level. The inner core of hell is not fire, it's ice, it's isolation, is alienation. That is the worst hell, and we're seeing that all around the world. And so one of our partners in contributing articles to World Civility Index, psychology professors, he was saying that we need to design work in the future so that we don't further alienate people. We don't further isolate people. It's not about cost. It's probably going to be not as effective if you have ChatGPT talking to somebody and providing answers and so on. But people don't necessarily need or want that. They may want to talk to a person, like you said, who would make mistakes. Oh, hey, I'm giving you this advice, but maybe I'm wrong. I'm only looking from my point of view. But those are kind of things that I think human beings treasure. It's what is the opinion of another human being, not something that is super smart and so on. So I mean, if the world would succeed because our leaders are having IQ of 160, we would have no problem already. But because humanity doesn't work on just IQ of intellect, just having good IQ and knowing about differential equations and general relativity does not solve humanity's problem. So we need humans to solve human problem at the end.
True. Affection.
Affection.
And actually, one of the treasures we misuse or we don't use at all is the ability of communication. We hardly communicate. We pretend to be communicating. We believe, we may assume that we are communicating, but most of the time, people are in a rush. Take families, including primarily families, within families. I mean, uh, sitting quietly and just talking, sharing interesting anecdotes, listening without judging, without accusing. Criticizing and accusing are different things. Unfortunately, they are mixed usually. And personally, I prefer to criticize myself and try to understand myself and everybody else. And so for me, I refrain from criticizing anyone. Or if I do, if I evaluate, evaluation is something else. We can't help evaluating, we need it. It's good. But then most of the time, we judge and condemn people wrongly. We criticize governments for the misdeeds of the judiciary system because we may say, oh, but you didn't allow the accused, the defendant to be defended properly. But okay, but in our minds, we keep accusing people, and without their knowledge, we usually exterminate them in our minds. We expel them from our vision, from our thought world. This is also a kind of capital punishment when you cut somebody off in your mind. Where is the justice in that? So the joy of philosophy, doing philosophy, living, these joys are free, actually. We have the words, most of them, and why not enjoy juggling with words, which is literature, actually? And then look at the possibilities and, and these make you happier. And we should, in families and in schools, I think more time should be given to communication, the art of communication, the art of living. So we need to become artists in terms of living, and we are not. So there is a lot to do, and thanks to AI, we can afford to spare time because unless we become fruitful, we can increase crime rates. So AI gives us an opportunity, but it's like a knife. You can kill a person or you can use a knife to take out a bullet from a wounded person. So we need more affectionate philosophy in dialogue, in conversation. That's why I also call this series of interviews Earth Civilization Dialogues, because Earth civilization has already begun, whether we call it or not. But there are millions, even billions of people who actually agree with us when you ask them the main questions, whether they are religious or not. So, but we need a few more common words uh, that may help us function better. And it is so sad to see miserable parents and children just because of miscommunication. Most of the problems come from, I think, miscommunication. And
Yeah.
so the civility index is all also related to all these, I guess. You know,
That's what is intended. Um, some economists that I got a fortune to talk to. One of them one time mentioned to me, Patrick, this is a good thing. Economists has been talking about having a different measurement compared to GDP.
mm,
And GDP, the war going on now in Ukraine actually increased GDP because there are more weapons being produced, more wage being paid, and so on.
mm,
So just by having GDP increasing doesn't mean that the well-being of human beings are better off or for the planet. So GDP was useful in the industrial age in terms of producing widgets from a factory, but in the 21st century, we need something else. And they were saying that, well, Patrick, you should really work hard because something like the World Civility Index could indicate how do you measure humanity in a better way. So as I speak, there are mathematicians and economists working on a formula how we can calculate the World Civility Index on a per country basis. So which country has the best index in that regard? So it's kind of similar to the World Happiness Index.
mm.
And there are quite a few other ones, Gini coefficient and so on. So, but there's nothing that measure soft skills or empathy like the World Civility Index. So they're saying that while World Civility Index is a good measurement about empathy, those are kind of things that has not been measured yet. They measure well how many people are in a country had gone to universities, gone to high school, and so on. So those are still fairly industrial age kind of measurement because in regular schools they don't talk about etiquette. They don't talk about empathy. They talk about calculus, math, chemistries, and so on. So they talk about a hard skill while they don't really talk or teach about the soft skills. And so the World Civility Index, since it's measuring about soft skills, is another indicator they can use to promote something like this.
Mm-hmm. That's all. Yes. And all words are contextual. Is that the right word? I mean, it depends on the context. Even the word empathy. For example, once I tried to empathize with someone doing a terrible thing because of faith, because of believing that this God wants me to do this and doing that crime, killing somebody.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to become that man in my mind and write a poem. I mean, what is the mentality? What is the feeling of doing something like that? And I did write. It's in English. I don't know if I'll ever publish it or if I'll ever include it in any of my books because um, too much empathy. I mean, an ethical side of me refuses to be empathical, to show empathy in that case. I refuse. I should maybe refuse. although I don't like limitation in my imagination, whatever, still ethically there, I sense that even empathy should have a decent limit. Very interesting. So all words are conditional. It depends on condition. And regarding intercultural communication, in Bosnia, Herzegovina, more than 10 years ago, I was invited to do a creative writing workshop to high school students. And in front of me, there were three groups of high school students from different schools, a group of Croatians, a group of Bosnians, and a group of Serbs. They were all young children when the tragedy occurred in Bosnia. But they were being brought up in that social cultural milieu at bitterness. And how should I start my presentation? So I said, some apples say, down with bananas and oranges. There should only be apples in the world. These are racist apples. Some apples say, okay, I'm an apple, but let there be bananas and oranges too. These are Democrats. These are democratic apples. And some apples say, I did not choose to become an apple. I want to become a fruit salad. I said, I've been trying to become a fruit salad.
Wow.
And I'm not Chinese enough or Armenian or Kurdish enough. And it's a lifelong journey, but the tendency, that's one of the things. And I enjoy sharing this. And another thing is, what are some of the very simple that cost nothing that can help intercultural understanding? Okay, here's an idea. Choosing names. For example, I have chosen a Kurdish name, an Armenian name, a Greek name, a Jewish name, etc. for myself. I have 19 names. I don't use them in daily life, but I have chosen them. And Tarık is already Arabic. My last name is Turkish, okay? So, because this is an ethical and simple idea. If everybody in the world wishes to choose names from cultures that have nasty experience in the past, conflicts, full of conflicts, then we can start looking from the other side more easily. For example, I've been thinking about such things, what are some of the simple things that can be immensely fruitful? And this one, for example, it costs nothing, it's free, it's simple, isn't it?
Yeah, wow. I gotta write this down. Don't mind if I steal your idea. This is such a great idea.
Thank you, but you're welcome. I mentioned this at a panel discussion in Istanbul, and a lady came. There was this Armenian Lebanese social democrat politician. He stood up and said, I will choose, as an Armenian, I will choose a Turkish name and a Kurdish name for me. And then a lady came. I said, I'm married to an Armenian, but I never thought about choosing an Armenian name for myself. Simple things are so easy that we can't think about them. That's why AI can help. Why did 30,000 people manage to produce a Socrates, Plato, Aristoteles, Sophocles? So few people, because there was slavery. Some people managed to live without working. Today's slaves will be AI. and will give us. But if we don't use it fruitfully, as you've been working on, then the result may be terrible. Drugs, murder,
Mm-hmm.
terrible lifestyles, etc. It's not automatically a good lifestyle. So
Mm-hmm.
fruitfulness. And I think happiness is overrated. Why should happiness be a goal? Being proud of oneself ethically, virtue should be a goal, I think. So we, and then once we can see it, uh, then we can also be happy. But trying to be happy should not be a goal. Trying to make happy may help you become happy. That's another thing. But if you try to be happy, you'll be miserable, I think. Forget
Mm-hmm.
about that. Try to do something meaningful. Then you become happy anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And under any circumstances, no matter even in, under extreme circumstances, you can still smile and say, well, this is part of the adventure. This is part of the game called life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, it is. It is. I was watching a documentary on how Navy SEALs, the U.S. Elite soldiers, they were saying that under very extreme circumstances, you want to focus on the things you can control.
Oh,
Smile, like you said, smile, and just breathing. I can control my breathing. I said, wow, that is so powerful. I never thought about something like this.
yes, 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 that's true. In the morning, one of the hundreds of phobias is the fear of not opening your eyes. I didn't know that until recently. So some people have this phobia. They are afraid of not being able to open their eyes in the morning. Isn't it interesting? So once you wake up and open your eyes, you have already won a victory. And then getting up, you need courage to get up. Something in you, life source, life power, as Bergson, I think, mentioned, something in you says, come on, live and do something, inspire. And we need that. And that's why psychological warfare is important. That's why we should not be pessimistic. I think pessimism is unethical. I want to go as far as this. Shame on pessimists. Shame on you, pessimists. You have, if you are a pessimist, that means you don't have a serious problem to to try to solve for. You're too comfortable to feel sad and deep.
You're right. It's easy. It's so easy to be pessimistic because you don't have to do anything, right?
Exactly.
You don't have to do anything. That's right. Yeah. Whereas if you want to really do something meaningful, um, it's like I said, people label me as a communist in a bad way, and
You
communist.
are in a good way, I think. I consider myself a communist. Many people who know me will be surprised because a commune in the I is let's try to get rid of money in our lives. The more we humanize our relations without any expectation of profit or anything, this solidarity, this is, uh, I mean, if I were in North Korea, I would definitely be in the opposition or in countries like that. But Marx's formula, free individuals, the free association of free individuals, free thinking individuals. This is what I'm after. And Earth Civilization Network is such a network. It's a voluntary synergy group of free thinking individuals. That's why I refrain from saying, let's do this or whatever. I prefer that I would like to do this. That's why I prefer saying, I too am on this planet. I too am responsible. I prefer to say I instead of we, not because I'm egotistic. I wish I were more. I'm not, unfortunately. Uh, but because uh, who am I to speak in the name of other people? Who am I to say we? I don't have the right to. I can
Mm.
speak only for myself.
Mm.
Uh, so if another person, that's why uh, uh, speaking the first person singular may mean megalomania, but it may also may mean modesty. It depends on how you use it.
Yeah, depends on the intention. Yes.
Attention. Yes, yes. I've
It is
talked
very
more
true.
than I
Yeah.
usually do. Sorry.
It is very true. Yeah. I never thought about it like that. So but I think you're asking about my background and my
Yeah.
previous trainings and so on. It does have a lot to do with my instinct as to what I'm doing now with the World Civility Index group, for example. And there are a lot of people uh, counting on us, looking up to us, and say, like trainers, they say, "Well, Patrick, what can you do to help my training business do better?" and so on. So this is really from a commercial point of view, uh, and something in the recent history gave me a lot of hope in this world. Uh, I say, well, making money is not a dirty word. It's how you make the money and how you spend it. That could be problematic. Now in the world, there are a lot of people who are very rich and they want to do good for the world. They have formed activist groups and they are demanding companies to also do good. Something called the corporate social responsibility.
Mm.
That is what companies need to do good. Now, there are also something that evolve out of the corporate social responsibility, and that is called the ESG. And it stands for the environmental, social, and the governance. So ESG is a big thing now in the world. And I talked to my two girls. I said, Daddy's so happy that I have discovered there's something called ESG that has been going on for a number of years. And that is aligning business interests with doing good. So the two goes hand in hand. In other words, it's no longer just enough for a company to do well, and that is having the financial report, doing, making money and so on. That has been the industrial model for the last 200 or 300 years. But now in this century, there's something called corporate social responsibility, or ESG, and company has to write reports to show evidence that they're also doing good. So do well and do good. So they both have to be hand in hand before institutional investors, the big money, will put money into an ESG aligned company in that regard. So with that, now there are a lot of criticism, like any good thing. A lot of people say, "Oh yeah, ESG is just a scam, just marketing ploy, and so on." Perhaps it is, but the spirit of it is
It's
still
good.
good. And so, like everything else, the devil is in the detail. It's depending on how the execution of people with ESG and so on. So with the World Civility Index, for example, we are part of that S, the social impact part, helping people to become more empathetic, they feel safer at work, more respected, and so on. And we generate those numbers. They can earn the World Civility Index points. And so the companies cannot do anything bad in terms of over exaggerating, embellishing, misrepresenting, or downright lying about, "Oh yeah, we're doing good," and so on. No. They need to earn the World Civility Index, and we can show about it. So that eliminates a lot of the words that are against this corporate social responsibility. They call them greenwashing. So we eliminating greenwashing, and so that's why I'm so busy. We are so busy because companies are saying, "Hey, Patrick, we want to use this World Civility Index for our employees and so on. So we would not be labeled as greenwashing and so on. So by doing good, they are also going to be able to do well because investors will look at them profitably and say, wow, doing good and doing well is all aligned. And sure enough, you should be making more money because you're providing a lot of good things, measurable good things to society. So I think those are the kind of things that that we can do very much in what you're doing. It's would there be possibility for you to write articles, short videos, and they can distribute it inside a company? So all the employees will be able to watch a 5-minute video or read a 5-minute article about your interpretation, about your wisdom that can be shared with all these people, right? So those are the kind of things that I think I would love to be part of your group and following you in having something like that.
Yeah, wonderful. And how come a torturer comes home and live as a good father? This is possible. It has been done. This is compartmentalization. Some sort of compartmentalization may be necessary in but flexible. But then when it is total, it is schizophrenic and harmful. Your approach is holistic, and this invitation, ESG, right? Environmental social governance, is it?
Yeah.
That is an outcome of a holistic approach to life. Life is multidimensional. So being an open entity, myself, but an open self, also with empathy, etc., and ethical, etc. Uh, that's why these are. That's why Socrates is a very contemporary philosopher, because we again need to ask what is friendship, what is good. We need to ask these questions. I think at every new age, people need to ask these questions. What would you recommend to young Earthmates or younger Earthmates?
Well, like in the IITTI Youth Standard, they postulated the three pillars, the three essences. Young people need to pick up hobbies, maybe stamp collection, rock collection, like my youngest girl, collecting rocks and all kinds of things, basically opening their eyes. Second is, well, talk to your old man, like you and I, more. Talk to old people and so on. So we're recommending whenever we can to governments, saying that your school structure needs to allow young people to go out to their neighborhood and talk to the senior citizens in old folks' homes and whatnot. That would allow a lot of cross-generational value exchange and learn from that. The third thing is they need to learn how to deal with boredom and other mental, spiritual issues. Those are kind of things that, unless they learn about something like this, it's very hard for them to get to the other side.
Thank you so much, dear Patrick Chun. And by the way, elementary schools, pre-garden, kindergarten, high schools, universities, they should invite people, elderly people, to talk about their lives. What you said is very important, and this can be done. Thank you so much, dear Earthmate. We're together. I enjoy saying that at the end. We're together. Thank you so much. We'll go on.
Okay. Okay. Okay,
Yes,
bye-bye.
my best wishes.